anyways, they ended up offering me a job there, So then I called my buddy. I'm like, hey, X-nay on the plan of running these guys under. I'm fixing to go take this place. I'm fixing to go take this place over. Right? Yeah.
We're the Beer Garden Mafia. That's how we roll. Laughing loud, living free. That's how we stole.
All right, welcome to the Beer Garden Podcast. I'm here with Eric, Jen, and we have a special guest today. This is Trent. Trent, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do?
My name is Trent Willett. I'm the general manager at Four Rivers Harley-Davidson. I build motorcycles, sell bikes, anything to do with them. I'm a member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club for over 20 years. I mean, that's about the extent of my life, I'm into Harleys and riding and building bikes.
How long you been riding Harleys?
See, I bought my first Harley when I got out of Marine Corps boot camp. I was 18 years old, so I'll be 53 this year.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Riding, huh?
Oh yeah, I've been riding a long time, rode a lot of miles, a lot of bikes.
So tell us how you became general manager at the Harley dealership. How did that all come about?
Well, I worked on Harleys my whole life, and I had my own shop for quite a few years in Mayfield, Kentucky, a place called T&T Choppers. And I've always done custom stuff, bikes, building. I'm into horsepower, things like that. And I never was a big, what you might call factory fan, and never saw myself working at a dealership. I got in a little trouble, and in 2010, I went to federal prison. And when I got out in 2013 and turned 40 years old. And I was thinking, like, man, maybe I should get a job somewhere with benefits and retirement, stuff I never had before.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I lined things up and tried to get a job at as a dealership. And Four Rivers Harley-Davidson in Paducah was supposed to give me a job when I got out. They had things lined out to hire me, and I got out and I went and I talked to them, and they ended up, they're like, man, we can't hire you. I said, we're sorry. They said, we ended up they had some kind of situation with another guy in a different club, and they said, man, we have a new policy. We're not going to hire anybody in the motorcycle club. And I said, that's kind of silly, but
yeah,
I said, you can't really.
Kind of crazy being there sell Harleys.
Yeah, exactly.
It
kind of goes hand it kind of goes hand in hand,
Exactly. And then they're like, and I compare. I'm like, hey man, you can't compare me or the clubs or any of that stuff. And I just said, look, I said, I'm going to make you money. I said, just give me a chance. I sat there and I said, get me out of the halfway house. I said, I wash bikes in here for $10 an hour, and I'll make you money. 6 months, we'll talk about it.
Right.
And they were like, man, we're sorry, we just can't. It's our new policy. And I'm like, okay. So I left there, and I had a buddy that worked at Abernathy's Harley-Davidson in Union City, Tennessee. And I lived around the Mayfield area, so I was kind of in the middle of either dealership.
I've actually bought 2 motorcycles from Abernathy's.
Really? Yeah. I was working there, and I was general manager there too for a bit. But so anyways, I said, well, I'm just going to open up a shop again. I got a little house that I'd rented, had a garage, and I put a post on Facebook, T&T Choppers is open again, and I had a shop full of bikes in a week. And about 6 months went by, and I got a call one day. I was on my way to Abernathy's to get some parts, but it was the owners of Four Rivers. They're like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to get parts. And they're like, we want you to come talk to us. And I said, well, what's up? And they're like, we're tired of hearing your name every day, and you're not part of this place. We want to talk to you about coming to work. And I'm like, okay. So I get to Abernathy's, and I'm talking to my friend Nelson, who was the service manager there, and I said, hey, man.
Nelson.
Yeah.
That's who I bought my motorcycles from, was Nelson.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. I really like Nelson.
Oh,
he was good people.
Yeah. And he was like, I said, hey, man, Four Rivers is going to offer me a job, and I never worked at a dealership, so I was asking him, like, hey, like, what kind of money should I be expecting? What's the ins and outs? And he told me and everything, and so I went the next day to see him. And they made me a really good offer, and I was like, wow, okay. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you an answer tomorrow by 4. I said, I'm going to go home and talk to my kids. I just got out of prison. My kids were living with me. They were in like 8th and 9th grade, so I'm like running them around the world, and life was like kind of, a lot going on, so I just wanted to talk to them, make sure it was going to work out. And I called Nelson that night, and told him what they offered. He said, wow, man. He said, yeah, that's pretty good. You going to take it? And I said, yeah, I'm going to let them know tomorrow. He said, okay. So the next morning I got up, and Nelson calls me, and I said, hey, what's up, bro? He goes, what time? Have you talked to them yet? And I said, no. He said, come down here. And I said, what's up? He said, well, I was telling one of the other guys that you were going to go to work at Four Rivers, and the owner, of Abernathy said he overheard me, and he said, well, why is he going to work there? And I said, well, because they offered him a job. He said, why didn't you offer him one? I said, I asked you, you didn't want to hire him. He's like, oh, no, get him down here. Because
right. Now they're fighting over you.
Yeah, because it was kind of a thing. Nobody cared if I was out there by myself just wrenching on bikes because, there's not a lot of money there. The money's in sales. But if I went to one dealership or another, I was going to carry sales with me. The people that run around with me, and I know a lot of people, they're going to go there for their bike sales, so no one wanted to lose that. And I didn't even realize that really at the time, but it was just like, wow, okay. So I went down and talked to them, and they made me a better offer. And I'd rather work for Nelson anyway. He was a good friend of mine. So I talked to Four Rivers to say, I appreciate it, but I'm not going to take the job. And I went to work at Abernathy's as a tech, just working on bikes. And I did that for about 2 years, and Nelson had a stroke. And when he had his stroke, they offered me the service manager job. So I took that, and then within 6 months of doing that, I was offered the general manager job. And so I took the whole place over. And, like a lot of things really escalated quickly, whatever. It was kind of a trip. And I didn't know a lot about it. Like I said, I never worked for another place. I was just an independent guy that just wrenched on bikes. So it was a big change, but the biggest deal was I knew bikes and I knew people.
Right.
General manager is supposed to have a bachelor's degree in business, and I tripped out of high school. I'm like, man,
well,
I don't,
anybody can learn the paperwork into something, but you can't teach somebody how to deal with people.
Yeah, exactly. And
you either got it or you don't.
They're like, we'll show you the other part, and you got the part that can't be taught.
Right.
Exactly. So away it went, in a real quick amount of time, I went from wrenching on bikes to running a multi-million-dollar place, and that place they hadn't turned a profit at that time. This was 2017, whenever I took over as general manager. They hadn't had a profit there in 6 years.
Wow.
And and by June of the year that I took it over, I had the place in the black, making a profit. And anyways, at that time, I was like, man. Four Rivers had sold the people that were there, the guys that were there that wouldn't give me the job. They went under, sold the place, and then these two guys that own it now, from Atlanta bought it. And I was just sitting back and I checked them out. They bought it, and I'm like, oh wow, here we go. Everybody's laughing. I was like, here's a couple other so rich city guys, bought this place, and we'll see how they run it in the ground, And anyways, and I was doing my best to bankrupt, and that's what I wanted to do to the original owners, because I kind of had a chip on my shoulder when they wouldn't hire me, So I did my best I could do to.
Well, the original owners down there, they had a reputation of treating people poorly.
Yes, they did.
I mean, straight up, they did. I heard about it all the time. I mean,
I saw it all the time.
But I actually discovered Diamond Heads and promoted that, and so I traveled, did motorcycle rallies for 15 years. I did that.
Yeah,
and I heard from people all over the country.
Oh yeah.
I tell them, hey, we got dealerships up there in Western Kentucky, and Four Rivers had a bad reputation for a long time.
Yeah, no, they sure did. And so these new people that they had bought it and they took it over, and they were kind of doing things their way. They were, they'd worked in dealerships in Florida and stuff, and a lot of that stuff doesn't work around in these areas here.
Yeah, that's a different one.
And I was doing my best along with I won't say a name, but another dealership, that was close by, and I was like, hey, let's run these guys out of here so you can buy it, and then I'll run it. I said, because, man, I would just love to have I-24. Abernathy's was in a cornfield. We had corn on one side, soybeans on the other, I'm like, give me I-24 in a town, as big as Paducah and everything else, and they really, just by the time I'm going to boom, go big, And so that was my plan, was trying to run them guys out. And then all of a sudden I get a call one day from the general manager there, and she's like, one of the owners is in and he'd like to meet you. And I said, okay. So we go out to eat and talk and stuff, and it was interesting. I had a good talk with him, and he knew some of my club brothers from the dealership he worked at in South Carolina and all. And anyways, they ended up offering me a job there, So then I called my buddy. I'm like, hey, X-Nay on the plan of running these guys under. I'm fixing to go take this place over. Right? Yeah. So they brought me on board, and I left Abernathy's, and ended up being a good thing. Within 6 months after I left there, they ended up getting shut down. And I've been at Four Rivers since, it's January of 19. So yeah,
Cool.
it's been
Yeah, now
it's been
Four
good.
Rivers has a great reputation.
Yeah, that was my number
We
one.
hear nothing but
The
good
first
about it
thing
now.
I concentrated on was turning the reputation around.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you have.
Yeah, you got quite a challenge there too.
Yeah, and it was, and a lot of people ask me like, well, what did you do, or how do you do that? The first thing I did is I sat down and I went through Google, Facebook, just every venue you got, right, and every bad review left ever. I mean, back to the beginning, I reached out to those people, and I says, hey, so I see you left a bad review for Four Rivers Harley-Davidson. I said, this is 7 years ago, maybe. I mean, whatever it was, and I'm like, look, I don't know if you know it, but there's new owners, and not only that, there's new leadership here,
Right.
management. I'm running the place now. I don't know what happened that upset you, but I'd like to hear your story.
Right.
And I can't make it right, but I can tell you what I'll do for you in the future. And if you still have a motorcycle or whatever, I'll give you a free oil change if you come down here and talk to me and tell me your story. And people are like, man, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, some of them sold their bikes or whatever else, but it didn't take long. Like, people come talk to me. I'm like, look, man, I can't help what happened then, and I hate that, but surely you don't want to drive 2 hours to the next dealership.
Right.
Right.
I mean, for real, it's like you probably like to come back here and, hey, the people you're upset with,
They're gone.
they're gone.
Right.
Yeah. And I said, give me a chance, give me an opportunity, to win your business. And people did, and like one of the longtime guys, Hooper, that worked for me, it was no time. He's like, man, Trent, he said, I'm seeing faces I haven't seen in years. Started coming back in. So we started drawing back in, people that were been upset and quit going there, along with, I carry a lot of sales with me because I sell bikes all over the country because of the club, my brothers and then friends of the club,
Right.
So, I brought that to the table and started, and getting the reputation.
Well, and in the Harley world, trust is everything.
Everything.
If you can win a man's
Relationship.
trust,
Yep.
he'll deal with you. But if they don't trust you, I don't care what kind of deal you're offering, they will not.
They don't want it.
won't deal with you.
And they smell fake a mile away.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
They don't want to talk to some used car BS
Right,
place.
yeah.
Go in there, like, hey, and I don't do that stuff. And people know, like, they reach out to me for bike deals because I wasn't a salesman to begin with. It was all new to me. When I took over as general manager, now all of a sudden I'm in sales up here talking to people, and I'm just like, the new owners that there, when I come to Four Rivers, they're like, how do you desk a deal? And I'm like, do what? Desk a deal? I said, well, I don't even know what that means. They're like, well, how do you write it up? You use a Foursquare? I'm like, what's a Foursquare?
Right.
And they look at each other, and I can tell they're just like, what have we done? Who's this guy we've hired? They're like, well, how do you explain the process of when you sell a bike? And I'm like, you like the bike? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'll sell it to you for this much. You got to trade in? What's it worth? Okay, here, I'll give you this much. I'm like, I don't know, what do you mean? What do I do, man? I offer them money for their bike and tell them what I sell them mine for.
Right.
I got a number in mind. I said, and I do like this. I usually, the first time, because people are used to the little game, they want to do it. I'm not into that going back and forth deal, but like, usually I'll shoot a price, then they'll come back with something, and then I'll go right there, and that's it, man. I try to give them the best deal anyway to begin with, because I believe in making a fair price and making it to where that person can trade that bike in 2 years.
Well,
Or whatever,
That's exactly why I bought 2 bikes from Nelson. That's how he was with me.
Yeah.
I'd call him up, say, Nelson, this is the bike I'm looking for. Do you have one? He'd say, yeah, here's your price.
Yeah. And
I'd tell him, lock it down, and I'm on my way.
You don't have to make all the money on every deal, or try to right there. Make a little bit of money on every deal, and then those people will keep coming back.
They'll keep
We call it like welding them up in the deal. When you get people upside down, you sell them a bunch of stuff in the F&I department that they don't need. And these kids sitting over here now, he's upside down $5,000 in the bike. I used to see it at Abernathy's. Got kids that come to me wanting to trade in their Dyna to a bigger bike. I'm like, what do you owe on yours? And then their head would drop, and I'd be like, well, I bought it at Four Rivers. I'm like, oh yeah. Well, they sold me this, and they start going down the line, and they got a bike that's worth $6,000 that they owe 12 on. Still.
Right. Well, a lot of dealerships, it's their goal to bury people in a payment.
Which doesn't help in the long run.
Well,
It
exactly.
does,
I mean,
We're financing their leather, like their chaps, their
and all that
helmets.
stuff.
their-
I've always been a person. I believe in long term.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna deal with you, I don't want to screw you today to make $100. I'd rather make $5 today,
And keep
$5
making $5.
next month, $5
That's
a
right.
month after that,
Yeah.
and over a
That's right.
lifetime, we'll have a
100.
great relationship.
Yep.
You'll come out good. I'll come out good. It's a
Comes out in the
win-win.
wash. You treat people right.
Yeah.
Good comes back to you.
That's right.
I'm not that guy. Like, if I get a kid in there and he's sitting there and maybe his parents have always told him, like, well, make sure you always get Gap insurance when you get a loan. And he's borrowing, sitting here buying a bike, and he's like, oh, I want Gap, and I'm looking at him like, man, you traded a bike in and you put $3,000. I was like, you don't need Gap. And that would make most owners and people fall backwards in their chair. What do you mean? You just told that guy he doesn't need Gap. You're selling something. You're making all this money off something you don't even have on the shelf. I'm like, look, I don't
you've
care.
been a lifetime customer.
He'll take that $1,000 that he didn't need to spend and go ahead and get the exhaust or the handlebars for the bike. And then he'll
That's
tell
right.
everyone he knows, hey man, Trent told me you don't need this, whatever. And then I got to get this instead, you know?
Yep.
I'm not going to just sit there and sell it to them. Even if they want it, I'm going to advise them like, you don't need it. You know, I'm like, you've got equity in the bike right now. You're good. You put money down or you traded something in, you know, just because you get a loan doesn't mean you need gap. It's only if you're upside down. I mean, your parents tried
Right.
to teach you a good thing, but didn't really explain it maybe, you know?
Right.
You don't need it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you should do with people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I got to sleep at night, you know,
Well,
and look in the mirror and see myself, you know. I mean, like I'm not into screwing people over, young people, you know, especially, you know, and that's what a lot of
No,
places
I mean,
do. Yeah.
I've seen people that conduct business where they just screw everybody as hard as they can, but you know what happens? They run out of customers.
Especially in this industry, because it's not like you just get new ones, really. You know, I mean, it is a repeat
Yeah.
business, you know, and it's all about.
Well, it's not like it
reputation.
was back in 2000 where people were lining up to buy Harleys and
Yeah,
on
monkey
waiting
could make a
lists.
million.
And, you know,
Yeah.
those days are
them
long
days
gone.
are definitely far gone.
Those days
Yeah.
are long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
market's
there was
shrinking.
a time when you could buy a Harley, ride it for 3 years, trade it in, and get as much out of it as you paid.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But now it's not like that.
Yeah, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could buy one from Seal Cycle. They sold them at MSRP. You load it in your truck and drive straight to Union City and make $4,000 to that dealership that day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Make
Yeah,
$4
you
grand
could.
that day on that bike.
I've actually bought motorcycles at rallies and flipped them at the rally and made $3,000-$4,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Never did anything to it.
yeah. You just supply and demand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The market's shrinking rapidly, though. You know, kids don't play outside no more at all. They don't ride bicycles. They don't get older, ride dirt bikes. They're not going to ride Harleys.
Yeah.
In the older generation, you know, they're dying out. In the generation before me, they're raising their grandkids because my generation's a bunch of screw ups. You know, I'd see it all the time. They would come down there to Abernathy's and they'd be trading across the road on a side by side their Harley, and they call me to bid on it, and I'd go over and it'd be someone I knew, and I'd be like, you getting rid of your bike? You know, you getting out of riding, and they'd be like, well, you know, daughter's in rehab, son's in prison, whatever, raising them grandbabies, got to get something we can do with them. I heard that all the time watching that happen, you know, and I'm like, wow.
Well, there's an old saying: if you don't raise your kids right, you're going to raise your grandkids.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did like, I don't know if it wasn't that they raised us right, but my generation was some screw ups, I can tell you, man.
I'm Gen X as well. So.
You know.
Well, I was raised by a Marine, and he didn't take no shit. He beat the fuck out of me.
I was raised by a Marine too. When I was 17, I went straight to Marine Corps boot camp. Yeah. So.
Okay, so what about this movie?
The movie Born to Lose, it's a movie coming out this fall. They was filmed in Paducah, Kentucky.
What's it actually about? Is it a biker movie?
It's a
or-
biker movie, yeah. I mean, basically the gist of it is this kid, he rides a bike, and him and his dad don't have a great relationship. And his dad rides too, and his dad was a drug dealer, you know. And he comes home one day, and his dad finds him dead. So he goes, you know, fast forward to the funeral. You know, he's sitting there, and people start coming up to him like, hey, can you hook me up? You know, your dad used to take care of me, you know. And so
Right.
he's thinking, man, I need to, you know, take this business over. So he goes to the local big guy who owns the strip club, and his sister is her boyfriend and works there, you know. And he talks to the big guys like, hey, man, can you hook me up, you know, and I'll take over what my dad did. And so the guy's like, you know, I can, but, you know, I don't know this, that. And he talks him into it, you know, and gets some stuff on the front, has a bike accident, loses the stuff, you know, wakes up in the hospital. I don't know, where's my bag at? It's gone. So now he owes for all this stuff. And he's like, what am I going to do, you know? So his dad's best friend had an old panhead there that was his dad's. And he said, hey, you got this panhead that your dad left you, you know? I'll help you rebuild it, you know? So, and in the meantime, you know, the kid, he's like, you know, reunites with an old girlfriend there, you know, because at the place, and starts rebuilding this motorcycle so that he can sell it and get the money to pay back, you know, the big guy at the strip club and do that. You know, I mean, it's just it's a cool little story. You know, got a little gist to it. And
Typical story of life.
yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's like whenever I read it, the guy that wrote it, he was a guy from Indiana. You know, he wrote it or whatever, and he was the first one I met. You know, and he just showed it to me. You know, and I read the script. And I'm like, it's a pretty cool story. You know, and
So
and
how big of a part do you have in a movie?
I have a very small part. As a matter of fact, I had a part in there, and I had a few speaking parts or whatever, but most of it got cut. You know, it's crazy. One thing about it is you see how much stuff they film, and then what gets cut. You know, I mean, at the end, you know, and that was another thing too. I was like, man, being out there on that set, you know, you think those guys got it easy or whatever. Like, it was hot out there and stuff, and they film everything from every angle. 15 times, you know, and I mean, and when they start, man, they ain't no joke. They're out there working 12, 14 hours and sweating, you know, and someone come over wiping the sweat off of them so they can go again, you know. And it's, I was like, man, this is like work. This ain't the Hollywood I thought. I'm like, yeah. I was like, where's all the women and, you know, other stuff you ain't supposed to be doing? Well, none of that around, you know. I was like, wow. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a neat experience watching them and being able to help out on the back of it. I helped them with the bikes and stuff, you know, getting bikes going because there was a lot of bikes in the movie, you know, and they had choppers. This movie was like old school choppers too. So, I mean, they had some cool, they brought down there cool pan heads and shovel heads and older stuff that I like, you know, and that stuff ain't easy to keep going. And then the people riding them are just actors. They're not the owners of them. Right. So, they don't know nothing about them at all, you know. They had a guy on the set that was really cool that I set him up in our shop, and his job was just to keep the stuff going. And I helped him with a lot of that, you know, along the way and just helped them find places to shoot at, you know. I mean, they didn't know the area. They were looking for this or looking for that. And I'm like, hey, I know this person or that person. Being a local, it was easy to do that, you know. And they were really cool. They were very, very, you know, right now, they were very thankful, you know. I mean, they needed to shoot a deal for an office at the strip club, you know, a scene. Well, the real office at the strip club was too small, so they're like, hey, can we use your office, you know? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, we're gonna come in here and we're gonna put some carpet down and paint and do all this other stuff, and it won't take but a day, but if you're okay with that. So I'm like, yeah, I don't care. You know, like in one day, this crew comes in, they painted my office, they laid leopard carpet down. I mean, they turned it into the strip club office, you know. And then when they got done, they're like, you know, we can take all this stuff out here, whatever, unless you want it. You know, they went and bought desks and all. I mean, you know, they completely set us up. I'm like, want it? And they're like, well, everything you've done for us, you can have all this if you want it. And I'm like, yeah, just leave it alone. It's cool. You know, I had the scene from Scarface on the back, you know, I mean, the whole wall, you know, and the rest of it was black with sheeted carpet. Yeah, I got a real pimped out office now out of the deal. That's the one thing I got. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a free upgrade.
Yeah, sure. So, but you know, they tell me, they're like, man, you don't know how much money and time you saved us, because they'll come on set. They said a lot of times like they needed a red record, and I found them one. They're like, you know, we would just got on Facebook Marketplace and bought one, and then did whatever, you know, sold it for whatever, lost money probably, you know. I mean, that stuff.
Right.
Because when they go to a town like in the middle of nowhere, you know, I mean, some stuff they try to rent or try to, you know, just however it was. But I mean, things like that. I mean, I knew people was like, hey, here, they can use this one, you know, need it for a day. Let's go. Here's your record, you know. Yeah. Here's your 49 Merc, you know. I mean, whatever. I mean, they was like, wow, this is so cool and easy. I'm like, it's just a small town, you know.
Yeah, that's the way it is around here.
So, you know,
they like to help.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, to me, I didn't do a whole lot, honestly. You know, I mean, I would just make a phone call and like, here you go, you know. But to them, they were like, man, you know, we couldn't have done it.
You're making miracles happen for them, you know.
Well, another thing is too is they needed extras. You know, like one of the first scenes, like was the kid's dad when he passed away. You know, whatever, they had the funeral deal and everything back at the house. You know, and they're like, hey man, they called me one day and they're like, it was like a Thursday when they called me and they're like, this Saturday morning, they're like, we need a good probably 50 people, like 50 extras. You know, and I'm like, okay, and they're like, you know, we'd like to have biker style people, you know, like that. And I'm like, all right. I said, what do y'all got anything? And they're like, we don't have nothing. I'm like, you don't have nothing, you know? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, I put a post on Facebook and had 100 people there, you know. But that's because I've got followers and stuff and know people, you know. But I'm like, what would y'all have done if it wasn't for me? Because I mean, they could have put a post up and they got 3 likes or whatever. Like, they don't know nobody here, you know what I mean? It was like exactly. They weren't prepared for that whatsoever, and it blew me away too. In some senses, how things are super organized, and in other senses, like, hey, we got all this stuff organized and ready, but yeah, we need 50 people. They look like bikers.
Yeah, and I had no idea what.
Well, yeah, Saturday morning at 7:00. You know, over here. Yeah. I'm like, what are you gonna do for them? You know, and they're like, hey man, we'll pay them. You know, it was like, I can't remember what they made, like $100 or so a day for all the people, and then they had, you know, food and beer and stuff like that. You know, they took care of people and it was cool. You know, but wow, man, just what would you have done? You know, I don't know. So
it's kind of strange.
Yeah, that is. It's crazy that they not prepared.
Yeah. But it's really good, you know. And then I went out to, you know, California for a deal, you know, and I had a lot of my club brothers with me. We went and watched the movie at the theater in San Jose, and they had the big party afterwards, you know, the deal, and they invited me and all my guys there, and they were very, very, you know, everybody from that industry was really, really cool to me, you know what I mean? And, you know, it wasn't like I kind of thought they'd be, you know, it wasn't like some of them acting like they're better than everybody or money wise, any of that. No, they were really down to earth and appreciative, and it was a fun experience for real.
Well, good. Very cool. Sounds like it was fun. So speaking of the club, tell us a little bit about the club. I know for a fact the club does a lot of good for people.
Yeah.
You're involved in toy runs.
Yeah, we do a lot of runs, you know, for people to try to raise money and help out the community. One thing I started when I got out of prison, when I was away, I had a lot of people that did a lot of things for me. Very fortunate, very thankful. Seen a lot of people in prison that didn't have nobody to do nothing for them, and I had people out there, club brothers, friends, family, everything though, that would, send my wife and kids money, take, put money on my books, just took care of us. I didn't have to worry about nothing while I was gone, and that was a good feeling, because when you're in there, you're helpless anyway.
Right.
And I didn't expect a lot of help from nobody because, I was in there because of my own, dumb reasons, what I'm saying? It wasn't like I'd done something great that deserved people to help you out. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like, and I didn't even like people helping, in a way, because people were sitting there, I'm like, wow, man, I go out there and I screw up, and then this guy's giving his hard-earned money to me, whatever he's out working his tail end off, and then going to take some of that money and give it up to me, that's...
Yeah, it makes you feel a little guilty.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, big time, what I'm saying? So I was very appreciative, And when I got out, we never really had... We used to have a couple little runs every year, but we never had nothing like I was trying to come up with something to give back to the community. And my mom, she worked at the food pantry for St. Joseph Church in Mayfield. And she was talking one day about how, it was they didn't have nothing in there like on the shelves or whatever, and I was just like, a food drive would be good, So I just, it was like a quick thing, and I got a really good big social media presence. So, I put something on there and this is like, boom, it just went rolling, So, I put on a food drive that year. And we took, and took all the stuff up there, man. We filled like 2 16-foot trailers, I never get. And I went up in there, the people that worked at the pantry were like, we have never had a donation this big. They were just like, they were giddy about it. They were just, oh my gosh. It was just food, piles of food,
That's
and
the side of bikers that people don't really see, though, because the news is not going to show that.
No.
They want to show the one member that's out screwing up, doing something wrong, and they're trying to clean.
All they want to do is talk about what I did a few years before that.
But
whatever.
Yeah, fast forward to current.
But the truth is, most club members are not out committing crimes. They're just, they're plumbers and welders.
They're workers, and I'll be the first to say, the things I did that I went to prison for had nothing to do with anything but me.
Right.
It was just me. I was an addict. You know what I'm saying? And I used drugs my whole life, and I was trying to pay for my stuff, and I was doing me, which is kind of in a sense, that I was embarrassed about that too, because I brought it myself, and my actions kind of brought a bad name toward the club and bikers in general or whatever. So
yeah, it tends to happen, but
sure, but yeah, I felt like I needed to try to do something to, give back. So many people had given to me that I wanted to do something to give back to the community, pay it back,
Right.
And I always believe in that, because I'll always be very grateful, to the two things I tell people I learned in prison, more important than anything, man, it was humble and grateful. And I got them tattooed on top of my hands right here so I would never forget. You know what I'm saying? Because you think of a lot of things and you learn stuff and you're like, hey, I'm going to make sure I'm going to be this way, and then you get out of prison or do whatever changes in life, and you might follow that path for a little bit, but it's real easy to get off of it and float back to whatever, And I was like, you know what, if I put that stuff right there, it'll be a reminder every day. Yeah. If you want to be a certain way, you have to remind yourself.
Yeah, you do.
You have to keep it in your forefront. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever want to stray from being humble or grateful,
Well, it sounds like the changes that you made in your life after you got out is what paved the way for your success today.
Sure. Yeah. Big time,
Steps you've taken to be part of the community. And
that's something I tell people too, like I've gone and talked at places, sober living places or whatever, rehab type deals, where a lot of guys are coming or going, but they may be headed to prison or coming out, and one thing I tell people, I'm like, hey, check it out. That doesn't define you. It's not the end. I'm like, I got out of prison. I got the best job I've ever had in my life. I've been nothing but successful, and grateful. A lot of people helped me. I didn't do it all on my own. I had opportunities here and there, but, I just stayed the course. I'm like, work hard, be good, and stay the course, and good things will come. Don't let it, And I went through before, like that job. I had a buddy of mine called me up when I was in halfway house. He's like, hey man, I think I might have you a job. And it was at I think it was a Chevy dealership in Mayfield, and it was like a parts job there. And it was a decent job, it paid good and had some benefits. And I'm like, wow, cool, and I went down there and I filled out the interview, and I filled out the app, did the interview, everything. Like, oh yeah, we'll give you a holler in a couple of days, and like 2 days later, my buddy calls and he's like, and I just knew I had it, they were pretty much all but done, and he calls me and he's like, hey man, I hate to make this phone call, it's killing me. And I'm like, what's up, and he's like, I didn't realize this, no one else did, that we started doing some things, man, but our insurance company or whatever, we can't have a felon here, you know. And I was like, wow, you know, and that was my first experience with, you know, you hear people talk about, oh, you know, once you're a felon, you can't get a job or whatever else. And I didn't really think it's true. And it is and it isn't. I mean, it's very true because I experienced it. They couldn't hire me. Yeah. And I was like, wow, you know, that was a kick, you know. I'm like, well, okay, whatever. But, you know, like I said, it wasn't the end of the world. I moved on to a much bigger, better thing. So,
right.
You know, you can, you can get hired as a felon. You can get a job as a felon. But, yeah, there's some things in place there that can hurt you a little bit or whatever and make people do what it, you know. But, you know, like I said, don't let that get you down. Just keep moving forward, you know, until you find something's out there for you.
Every day leads you to a yes.
Yeah, just, you know, if you got any kind of talent or whatever, or just, you know, even if you don't have talent, if you're a hard worker, nowadays it's hard to hire anybody to do anything. People don't want to work here, man. We're short-handed. We stay that way. I mean, this is like,
well, people just don't show up. You know, I tell these young people in beer garden all the time. You want to be successful? If you tell a man you're going to do something, you show up and you do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't lie to people.
Yep,
if you can't do it, just be honest and say, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But if you tell somebody you're going to be there on Tuesday, you damn well better show up Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah. And if you can't do it, say, hey, show me how.
Yeah.
I learn quick or study, do whatever. I mean, you know, I'm not going to lie to nobody, but I'm like, hey, you know what? I ain't that good at that, but I bet, you know, I watch a YouTube video and figure out anything. I'm a plumber. Right. I'm an electrician. I'm a mechanic. What do you want me to be today? I figure it out and get it done somehow.
Yeah, I mean there's information out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Be willing to.
Yeah, that's it. You got to be willing
to
do it.
Yep.
Mindset.
Yep, that's right. The difference between successful people and those that are not successful people, they tend to be honest. They tell you they're going to do something, they do it.
Follow through.
And they're willing to work harder than everybody else.
Yep.
Yep.
That's the truth. That's my advice, kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're running up on a half hour here. Think you want to have any more questions, or you think you want to wrap it up, or?
Well, we could probably talk all day, but I'm sure we got things to do.
You're a great interview, absolutely.
And we could always have you back if you're willing.
Oh, yeah, I'll probably come back. Yeah, it's pretty. I think you guys got a cool thing. Yeah, if y'all get air conditioning.
Yeah. Well, the air conditioning unit is supposed to be here Saturday, so probably midweek we'll have it installed. And so next time you come in, it won't be like a sweat box in here.
Yeah.
You won't feel like it.
I feel like I'm back in Morgantown, you know. I'm back in the feds, you know. It's hot, no air conditioning. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Trent.
Yeah, awesome. Good meeting you guys.
So come on down, raise your voice with me. Whether you're from the city or the fields of green, we're just a bunch of rednecks doing our thing in this beer garden life that makes our hearts sing.